of Jaisalmer near Pakistan border. The two got identified as belonging to Ghotki district of Sindh province of Pakistan. Both were Hindus. Both would have illegally jumped the border but lost their way, and the desert heat killed them. A week before that, an equally disquieting story emerged of 5 kids of a Hindu family running away from home and converting to Islam, again in Sindh. What's happening with the Hindus of Sindh is our focus. Second, a quick lowdown on the India-US trade deal or some aspects of it, whether it's happening or not. And finally, a warning shot from China. The dragon is breathing fire on our food security. We will understand how. Let's get going. These pictures are of Ravi Kumar and Shanti Bai, both in their teens, both from the desert district of Ghotki in Sindh province of Pakistan. They were found in this condition, perhaps dead for a few days, in Jaisalmer this week. Police believes they escaped from Pakistan but lost their way in the desert. The heat killed them before they could reach any human habitation or shelter. The story is tragic and incomplete. I tried piecing together from the Pakistani side with some sources as to what would have happened. Most likely narration is that they eloped or escaped but wanted to leave Pakistan at any cost, at the risk of their lives even. They could not make it, perishing in the desert sands with little to connect the dots. In the tragedy of Ravi Kumar and Shanti Bai is a glimpse of the Hindus of Sindh, a microscopic minority in Pakistan that faces daily existential threat from a radical society that cannot tolerate even this small number of Hindus in their midst. Also this week, another Hindu family faced the suffocating ambush of extremism in Sindh.
हमने अपनी रजा और खुशी के साथ इस्लाम कबूल किया है।
मैं बाई बिनते भगवान दास अपनी रजा खुशी से इस्लाम कबूल करती हूँ।
मैं विकास कुमार बिना किसी जबरदस्ती के इस्लाम कबूल करता हूँ।
आज अपनी रजा खुशी और होशो आवाज और बगैर किसी जबरदस्ती के इस्लाम कबूल कर लिया है।
मैं दुशीना बाई अपनी रजा खुशी से इस्लाम कबूल किया है।
These 5 youngsters, 3 of them minors, are heard claiming on camera that they converted to Islam on their own free will. While making the declaration, they can be clearly seen to be reading from a script, like their eyes can be followed as they move to read from a piece of paper held in front of them. These are 5 children, Disha, Diya, Jisha, Vikas and Ganesh, of the Bhagwandas family of Shahdatpur in Sindh province of Pakistan, and they were reported missing a fortnight back, only to appear mysteriously with police, but disowning their families, disowning their religion, professing to have converted to Islam on their own free will. Listen to them once again.
मेरा नाम जिया है। मैं, मेरी 2 बहनें, हमने अपनी रजा और खुशी के साथ इस्लाम कबूल किया है और अपनी रजा और खुशी के साथ घर से भागे हैं। इसमें हमारी किसी ने भी किसी भी किस्म की कोई भी मदद नहीं की है। हम अपनी मर्जी से और अपने ही बलबूते पे, अपने ही दम पे निकले हैं घर से।
मैं बाई बिनते भगवान दास अपनी रजा खुशी से इस्लाम कबूल करती हूँ। मुझ पर किसी भी किस्म की जोर जबरदस्ती नहीं है।
मैं विकास कुमार जयप्रकाश अपने पूरे होशो आवाज और बिना किसी जबरदस्ती के इस्लाम कबूल करता हूँ और मुझे अपने घर वालों से खतरा है, मुझे तहफ़्फ़ुज़ दिया जाए।
मैं हरजीत कुमार उर्फ अब्दुल राफे आज अपनी रजा खुशी और होशो आवाज और बगैर किसी जबरदस्ती के इस्लाम कबूल कर लिया है।
मैं दुशीना बाई बिनते भगवान दास अपनी रजा खुशी से इस्लाम कबूल किया है। मुझ पर किसी भी किस्म की जोर जबरदस्ती नहीं है।
Did you get any sense that everything is above board with their conversions, including the attire? Just a short clip of the wailing mother of the kids. And then a press conference addressed by the family members. The Sindh Human Rights Commission has taken suo motu cognizance, but it might end there. An average of 300 forced conversions get reported per annum in Pakistan. And that must be a very conservative number. Anything between 1,200 to 5,000 of the remaining Hindus leave Pakistan every year, most of them coming to India. A survey by the Digital Rights Foundation on minorities in Pakistan found words like wajib ul qatl, which means worthy of killing, fitna or cause of discord, and male ganimat, war booty or sex slave, frequently used for Hindus, Sikhs and Christians in Pakistan. There are organized syndicates called blasphemy business groups run by lawyers. These are criminal gangs luring unsuspecting people, mostly minorities, and then blackmailing them for any innocuous comments they might have made. Either pay up or convert, or else sartan se juda threat. Zohran Mamdani, the likely new mayor of New York, recently got away with a blatant lie that there were no more Gujarati Muslims left. Gujarati Muslims are not only thriving, but happen to be one of the more affluent segments of the Muslim community as a whole in India. Whatever I could scan of Mamdani's public positions, I found none, like not one expressing his mind on the Hindus of Sindh. The Human Rights Commission of Pakistan came out with a report recently terming the judicial process as tilted against the Hindus with little chance of justice. Districts like Ghotki, Umarkot and Tharparkar in Sindh were described as Hindu abduction hubs, with most victims being underage girls, abducted, converted and forced into marriages with Muslim men. It's an organized crime with complete state support. The courts joined the extremists by not allowing the abducted girls to return to their families, putting them in detention camps instead. The story of cleric Mia Mittu, whose seminary Dargah Barchundi Sharif in Ghotki is used as a one-stop shop to convert and marry off Hindu girls, has attained international notoriety. Most Hindu girls are not sent to schools for fear of abduction by their families. The story of the Hindus of Sindh was foretold by Pakistan's first law minister, a Bengali Hindu by the name of Jogendranath Mandal. He was also a Dalit and presaged the Jai Bhim, Jai Meem slogans of today's pan-Islamists of Indian politics. Like now, so then, Mandal felt he was cheated, quit as minister and returned to India to redeem himself. His resignation letter to Pakistan's Prime Minister Liaquat Ali Khan is instructive of how Pakistan would treat its Hindus. I must say that this policy of driving out Hindus from Pakistan has succeeded completely in West Pakistan and is nearing completion in East Pakistan too, he wrote. The future of Hindus in East Bengal is completely dark and dismal. Leaving aside the question of East Pakistan, let me now refer to West Pakistan, especially Sindh. A large number of them were converted to Islam. Only 4 out of a dozen scheduled caste girls abducted by Muslims have yet to be recovered. The names of those girls and the names of their abductors were supplied to the government. The last reply recently given by the office in charge of the recovery of abducted girls said that his function was to recover Hindu girls and not Achut or scheduled caste ones. They were not Hindus. The condition of the small number of Hindus that are still living in Sindh and Karachi, the capital of Pakistan, is simply deplorable. After an anxious and prolonged struggle, I have come to the conclusion that Pakistan is no place for Hindus to live and that their future is darkened by the ominous shadow of conversion or liquidation. Those Hindus who will continue to stay accursed in Pakistan will, I am afraid, in gradual stages and in a planned manner, be either converted to Islam or completely exterminated. I did some extensive reading from Mandal's letter because it is instructive. The conversions are never of free will. Either there is inducement or there is threat to life. They began in 1947 when the Hindu population of present-day Pakistan was about 8%. They continue when the population of the Hindu community has dwindled to just about 2%. It has been a systematic cleansing of the Hindus in Sindh, the ideology epitomized by Asim Munir's April 16 speech.
पाकिस्तान की कहानी अपने बच्चों को जो है आपने जरूर सुनानी है ताकि वो पाकिस्तान की कहानी ना भूलें. Well, our forefathers they thought that we are different from the Hindus in every possible aspect of life. Our religion is different, our customs are different, our traditions are different, our thoughts are different, our ambitions are different. That was the foundation of the two-nation theory that was laid there. That we are two nations, we are not one nation.
Attacking and killing Hindus to physically annul their symbols and their person has been Pakistan's single-minded project since its inception. Pahalgam is not the first terror attack targeting Hindus. Almost all the terror attacks in the last 5 decades and more were aimed at Hindu reprisal. From the 1993 Mumbai bombings to the 2008 Mumbai terror attack, and a dozen other terrorism incidents in between. The whole idea behind the ISI project of Indian Mujahideen, for example, was to target Hindus from Ahmedabad to Bengaluru, from Hyderabad to Varanasi. It is an organized hate. It is deep-seated ideological construct. Jinnah getting Pakistan without disturbing the crease of his pants, as he once famously claimed, was just a beginning. The 8% Hindus in 1947 or 2% now never constituted a threat. And yet, Ravi Kumar and Shanti Bai have to escape. Disha, Josha and Diya have to convert to just survive. Mamdani believes his being a minority adds value to New York, even as minority status in Pakistan comes with a death warrant. Moving on for now. This brings me to the elephant in the room or the dragon in the sky that increasingly obstructs India's march to progress. Now it is specifically targeting our supper plates. China has put a full squeeze on exports of specialty fertilizers to India over the last couple of months. Shipments bound for India are facing procedural delays. There are signs that the informal squeeze might be India-specific and should be seen as part of the larger economic war that China is capable of waging, leveraging its manufacturing muscle. China is a large supplier of fertilizers, both the urea and the phosphatic types. Like it is supplier of key commodities in most other sectors, including pharma, for the rest of the world. In the present case, the phosphatic fertilizers are second most widely used in India, and a supply crunch directly affects fruits and vegetables this season. Kharif season accounts for half of overall food production of India, and China's move to disturb fertilizer supplies seems intent on disrupting that very cycle. Here are the numbers. India's DAP or phosphatic stock holding is down from 2.8 million tons in June of last year to 1.8 million tons this year. Though it's still above the offtake for the season, the dwindling of stocks is worrisome. It has already led to a spike in prices, forcing farmers to look for alternatives. India imports anything between 150 to 160 metric tons of these fertilizers in the June to December Kharif cycle, China accounting for a third of those imports. This must act as a wake-up call for both the government and the industry. If there's any regulatory cholesterol impeding quick growth of the fertilizer sector, the government should quickly move to plug the gaps. If the industry has been slack, depending on the easy China route, then it should buckle up and make sure that India becomes independent of this Chinese dependence in soonest possible time. It's been a generation since we depended on foreign support of any kind for our food security. But those days of ship to mouth were scary. China's recent actions are not confined to fertilizers alone. Only last week, we profiled Chinese moves on rare earth minerals, directly affecting global automotive industry, supply chains, among others. In this global game of geopolitical disruption using trade, China, for the time being, controls levers that it can use to manipulate bilateral trade relationships. And if it can do this much with India, which has wherewithal to work on alternatives, imagine what China must be doing to nations in Africa, many of which completely depend on them for their economic growth. There's a lesson which we have oft repeated on this platform, that China needs to be tackled collectively. Individually, trade deals with China would be, by default, disadvantageous to rest. The overcapacities once created have sustenance power that can last decades and more. The United States is a classic example of overcapacity of its war machine during the 2 world wars, sustaining it for almost a century and more as the lead power of the world. But while America's rise was at least rooted in democratic values and dialogue and a network of international institutions, in the case of China, it is my way or highway. Only last week, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal was panned for this remark he made in London. Listen to him.
So if I do an ASEAN agreement with Indonesia and Malaysia and Vietnam and Thailand and Cambodia and Laos, which was done 15 years ago before we came into government, it really is silly because I am giving or opening up my market to my competitors, and many of whom have now become the B team of China. So effectively and indirectly I've opened up my market for goods that find their way from China into India.
While this created a diplomatic furore, the crux of Goyal's argument was that China had successfully created manufacturing proxies in the ASEAN region and was gaming trade agreements it was not party to by leveraging its presence in these geographies. Goyal was proven right this week when the United States signed its first trade agreement in ASEAN with Vietnam. And guess what? The deal provides for only 20% tariff on Vietnamese goods, but slaps a steep 40% duty on third-party shipments, acknowledging the looming Chinese disruption. The world needs to watch out.
I think we're going to have a deal with India, possibly, and that's going to be a different kind of a deal. It's going to be a deal where we're able to go in and compete. Right now, India doesn't accept anybody in. I think India is going to do that, and if they do that, we're going to have a deal for much less tariffs.
That brings me to the third and connected segment. If China is blackmailing on our food security, do we have a way out? It seems we have. The India-United States trade deal, which is in the works, has an aspect which has turned into an ideological war. The issue, which might play out over the second round of trade deal, is of the genetically modified crops. What is genetically modified crop? Any product of tinkering with the DNA of the plant or organism that changes the genome sequence and hence characteristics, like making them more pest resistant or increase their nutrient value, is called genetically modified. One would say, what's the harm? None really if you are a rich surplus economy like the United States. How do you become a rich surplus economy? By using the same modern technology, which for now is an impediment. I personally do not see any harm in transiting to a GM crops ecosystem in a controlled, graded fashion in India. Look at the numbers. In the case of soybeans, against the yield of just 1 ton per hectare in India, it is 4.2 tons per hectare in the United States. Similarly, in the case of maize, against India's low productivity of 3 to 4 metric tons, it is 11 metric tons in the case of United States. So it's a no-brainer. The question is how to handle the transition so that our own farmers can handle this produce without the glut leading to a price crash. The Niti Aayog, government's in-house think tank, came out with a working paper in May toying with the idea of allowing GM imports. The paper was clear: no GM maize or soybean into the Indian food chain, but only a monitored nod for the fuel chain. Due to the focus on ethanol production to meet blending mandates for green biofuel, India's maize imports have seen a 500% jump in recent years. Instead of importing GM maize, why not just import ethanol, GM or no GM? That was the idea. Would have dovetailed fantastically with climate objectives too. and provided a halfway house over US demand for allowing their GM crops into India. Unfortunately, Niti Aayog had to withdraw the paper faced with criticism from the opposition and even pro-government lobbies like the Swadeshi Jagran Manch. What raised hackles was the Niti suggestion that soybean oil also be allowed. Now that's a red flag, since this gives direct entry to GM crops into the food chain in the country. India is the largest importer of edible oils in the world. There's this argument that with a small tweak as this, allowing GM soybean, we would have achieved many objectives: reduced our import bill, balanced trade with the United States, and taken care of one small aspect of food security, dependence on China. India has had only one experiment with genetically modified crops, that of cotton, and the results have been satisfactory, if not super successful. Introduced in 2001, in a span of 8 years, the GM cotton catapulted India into the second largest cotton producer in the world, as also the biggest exporter of cotton. The cotton produce amounted to 15 million bales only in the year 2000. It more than doubled to 32 million bales by 2010. Farmers across Gujarat, Maharashtra and Karnataka reaped dividends and saw a reasonably good increase in their incomes. As it happens, agriculture is not just an economic activity in India, it is intensely cultural and even more intensely political. With 50% of India's population still dependent on agriculture, the vote bank is a sensitive issue. India's opposition to GM crops predates the World Trade Organization and goes back to GATT and earlier. The concerns are because the GM seeds are often patented, giving leverage to big American agri-tech corporations. This is seen as going against small farmers-driven Indian agricultural landscape. Also, GM seeds are non-reusable. Farmers need to buy fresh seeds in every crop cycle, unlike our desi varieties that are self-generating. Also, of late, there are reports of even the GM cotton developing pest resistance. But that does not mean we have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. The government needs to make a concerted attempt to move cautiously in the direction of GM crops backed with intense research. A fail-safe product with guardrails would go a long way in boosting India's food security, lifting us out of the orbit of American pressures or Chinese blackmail. That would be a reasonably good spin-off. Thanks for watching.
Bharat 1 Minute brought to you by Canara Bank. Together we can.
Security has been tightened for Lord Jagannath's Bahura Yatra in Puri. 100 police platoons, RAF, Arishar Rapid Action Force and Coast Guard have been deployed. 3 people had died in a stampede near the Gundicha temple on the 29th of June amid the festivities. Celebrations lined up as Tibetan spiritual leader Dalai Lama will celebrate his 90th birthday. Union Minister Kiran Rijiju also on the list of attendees. Close to 70 people have died as flash floods have hit Mandi in Himachal Pradesh. The state government has announced 5,000 rupees per month as house rent to families whose homes were damaged and who are currently living in rented accommodations. Punjab police in 2 different cases has busted an international narco arms module and an interstate narco hawala syndicate. The police arrested 9 people in the 2 cases. 5 sophisticated pistols with 9.7 lakh rupee drug money and over a kilogram of heroin have been seized from them in Amritsar.
Bharat 1 Minute brought to you by Canara Bank.
का भी गला करना चाहिए।